You've probably heard of volcanoes like Mount St. Helens and Krakatoa. But did you know that there are other types of volcanoes like subglacial volcanoes and tuff cone volcanoes? In reality, volcanoes are very diverse, like people. Let's erupt from the lava and look at part 1 of all the types of volcanoes, how they form and explode. Number 1. Classic volcanoes, which are shield volcanoes, cinder cone volcanoes, and stratovolcanoes. These volcanoes are the most common and are the ones that you're familiar with. But how do all these classic volcanoes work? Shield volcanoes are usually formed on divergent plate boundaries. Divergent plate boundaries slowly move away from each other, as shown in this video clip. This causes lots of tension, which creates cracks or volcanic vents in the ground. As a result, magma comes up from the ground and hardens. This process happens again and again until a mountain of dried lava is present, which is the shield volcano. Shield volcanoes are calm erupting volcanoes, erupting basalt lava that covers a lot of land. Giant shield volcanoes, like Erta in Ethiopia, sometimes have calderas at the top. And in those calderas lie lava lakes, which are craters of hot basaltic magma. They might also have pit craters, volcanic sinkholes that form when the volcano collapses or expands. Cinder cone volcanoes are also formed when a vent in the Earth's crust spews out lava which hardens. But this lava hardens into a rock known as scoria. But people in the United States call relatively big pieces of scoria cinders, hence the name. These volcanoes are sort of explosive. Finally, there are the infamous stratovolcanoes or composite volcanoes, like Mount St. Helens. These are formed on convergent plate margins or subduction zones, where an oceanic plate slides into the mantle under another plate, which leads to a bunch of magma rising to the surface. Stratovolcanoes are very explosive, creating pyroclastic flows, which are dense clouds filled with rock, debris, gas, and ash that can reach up to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 815 degrees Celsius. And they produce lahars too, which are violent and very destructive mud flows that run down the slope of a volcano into a river valley. Number 2. Underwater volcanoes. Underwater volcanoes make up around 75% of all volcanoes on Earth. They form like the volcanoes I just mentioned earlier, but erupt in a different way. The way they erupt depends on how deep they are in the ocean. If they are in waters shallow enough, the magma will heat the water so much to the point that it turns into a huge cloud of steam, with debris building up around the volcano or volcanic vent. This type of eruption is called a Surtsian eruption. However, if the eruption happens 1 mile or around 2 kilometers below the surface, the water will get very hot, but harden the magma and turn it into rock, definitely not turning into steam at that depth. Number 3. Subglacial volcanoes. Subglacial volcanoes, or glacial volcanoes, are volcanoes that form and erupt under glaciers or ice sheets. The subglacial volcano says, "Shh, don't speak, I'm playing hide and seek and this is my hiding spot." These volcanoes have a unique way of erupting. They erupt like any other volcano. But when the lava reaches the ice covering the volcano, it melts the ice, oftentimes turning it into a lake of meltwater. The lava then cools down and turns into pillow lava sometimes, which is a type of hardened magma rock that looks like there's a pillow inside the rock. An example of a subglacial volcano would be Mount Erebus in Antarctica. Number 4. Complex volcanoes. Complex volcanoes are, well, complicated to say the least. Complex volcanoes are basically just combinations of different kinds of volcanoes. For example, a complex volcano might erupt slowly and calmly like a shield volcano. But other times, it erupts violently and shoots lava high into the sky like a stratovolcano. They are also usually formed from a smaller, miniature volcano over a long period of time. The internal features of a complex volcano are also different. Typically, they have many openings or vents all over to release magma, along with one big vent going up the top. Most volcanoes only have one big vent, which is what makes complex volcanoes one of a kind. Number 5. Spatter cone volcanoes. Now, spatter cone volcanoes are very similar to the previously mentioned cinder cone volcanoes. However, they are a lot steeper than cinder cones. But the main reason why spatter cone volcanoes and cinder cone volcanoes are different is because of the materials that they are made of. Cinder cones are made up of scoria, like I said, a rock that is loose and crumbly. Like that sandcastle you made on the beach when you were 5 years old, but it crumbled apart and got washed away in the ocean. Spatter cone volcanoes are made up of hard, welded-together pieces of material, called spatter. These cool volcanoes usually form when globs of magma shoot up from a volcanic fissure in the ground. And those globs pile up on top of each other until they form a cone shape. Spatter cones are, a lot of times, formed from carbonatite lavas or low-viscosity lavas. Carbonatite lavas glow magenta due to their special incandescence. Number 6. Tuff cone volcanoes. Also called ash cone volcanoes, these unique types of volcanoes are made up of something called tuff, which is a porous type of rock. These volcanoes form below bodies of water, usually a lake. When magma spews out of the volcanic vent, the water turns into steam and speedily expands, splitting the lava into sections. Then, the lava turns into fine granules of ash that fall down into a cone shape. After a certain period of time, the ash compresses into tuff. Tuff is a shade of beige or light brown and is sorta soft. Hey, I know what the perfect nickname for a tuff cone is. An ash killer, get it? Finally, at least for part 1, number 7, rootless cone volcanoes. Rootless cones are basically just weird fake volcanoes. They are not fed from Earth's interior magma through volcanic vents like all other volcanoes. Instead, they are structures that form via the interaction between a lava flow and underground water, like a lake, river, or simply just damp ground. The lava from an erupting volcano nearby will travel under a tube beneath already hardened lava, called a lava tube, and then meet the trapped subsurface water. This causes a tremendous amount of steam buildup, which eventually explodes or erupts through the already hardened lava above, forming a crater. And to make them even more of an oddball, that steam eruption is the one and only eruption that they will ever have. Also, there are 3 types of rootless cones. Literal cones, which actually are the only rootless cones that form above ground, explosion craters, and the smallest of them all, hornitos. Hey, look forward to part 3 and part 2, coming to a theater near you. Well, the YouTube theater.